So as a business owner or as somebody who is in charge of getting your business's message out, I wanted to keep it real today in a quick live stream on some of the things that I feel like a lot of marketers, a lot of business owners are jacking up when it comes to positioning your brand. Hey guys, it's Erica Castner, and I am a business and breakthrough coach dedicated to helping people position themselves from a place of strength and secure partnerships that are productive in their business. So the tip of the day I have for you is, if you are going to go through the trouble of putting together any type of communication, whether it's an e-newsletter, a Facebook Live, anything, a blog, a podcast, like whatever you might be doing, networking, whatever you might be doing to position your brand in front of your ideal client or your strategic partners, is to stop selling to them all the time. Delete, delete, delete. I get so many emails from people that intentionally put me on their list. And I love keeping in touch with people that have some sort of value prop behind their email communication or any type of communication. But if the only ideas or the only thing that I'm getting in that message is a pitch to take advantage of your product or service, I'm going to delete you. So if you are making those mistakes, I understand that it is imperative for you to talk about your programs and services, your products, whatever it is, however you make money. I believe it is absolutely imperative that you let people know how they can take the next step with you. But if that's the only way you're communicating with your people, if that's the only way you're communicating with your audience, it is not doing you any service by constantly putting out pitchy messages, okay? So here's what I want to share with you today. Here are some ways that we can actually start shifting. If it's pitch, 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 again, I understand we're all in business here. We definitely want to make sure that we are positioning our products and services in front of the people that are meant to hear it and that are meant to pick it up. But we've got to lead with value first. So one of the ways that we can add value, and here's the thing, I'm actually going to just share a couple things on here today. What day is this? Today is Tuesday, and whoever just liked that, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Let me know who's here in the comment section so we can have a little bit of dialogue today. I'm not going to have a lot of time in here today, but I do want to, if you obviously have questions or comments, I do want to talk about it today. So feel free to leave those comments in the sidebar here so I can check those out and engage with them while I'm on here today. So just real quick, if you happen to be in the Fort Myers, Florida area on Thursday, March 22nd from 4 to 6 p.m. down in Millennial Brewery, we are having the Expand Your Presence workshop. So let's get into what I wanted to talk about today. Okay, the quickest way to provide more value to people is understand what type of, I'm actually getting ready to submit a plan for a client of mine right now. And one of the things that we did was, she's got a very service-based industry, something that's not tangible, something that you can't snuggle with or touch. So one of the things that we're doing to position her brand as from a place of service and support in front of her ideal clients is to do this. Number one, come up with a frequently asked questions list. Maybe there's a particular, there's the same 8 to 12 questions that you keep getting asked. And I'm not talking about your service or your product. I'm talking about like things that people would be inquisitive about as it relates to, well, like if I didn't have this service, like what would be the repercussions? Like especially anybody that's if you're in a business and let's say you do tax planning, right? So one of the things that you could do from a value prop standpoint is to talk about, well, okay, like what would be the top 8 questions or the top 10 questions that somebody would need to ask in order to understand how those tax planning strategies are going to affect their business. I'm making that up as I go because I don't know anything as it relates to tax planning. That's not my gig. But whatever your industry is, think about the top 8 to 12 questions that would make sense for your ideal customer or your strategic partner to be thinking about, and mention the question, and you could actually do this. This is actually the way I started my YouTube channel 4 years ago. Literally, I left a networking event, and I was actually the guest speaker at an event, and I had 10 tips on how to be a more effective networker. So what I did was, one by one, each tip, I actually shared the tip or the question, if you will, and I elaborated on it in 2 to 4 minute videos. You could do the same thing. You could actually take whatever it is that you know, your knowledge, and put it down into 8 to 12 sound bites, and literally turn your phone into your phone right here. You could turn your phone into selfie mode. You can actually do what I'm doing right now and utilizing your computer webcam to do the same thing, but figure out a way to get that information in front of people. Next up, one of the things in terms of taking that content and then being able to repurpose it is to find a way to get in front of other people's audiences, meaning there are lots of ways that you can either podcast, you can video cast. There's a lot of software tools out there right now that will allow you and another person to have a conversation about whatever topic you want to talk about. So getting in front of other people's audiences is another way to add value to more people that you already are. But here's what's also really cool about this. It actually gives you some additional street cred, if you know what I'm saying. Because if somebody is going to be willing to invite you onto their platform, whether it's their blog, their podcast, their TV show, their web show, whatever that means, if they are in a position to invite you on there, well, subliminally, you're sending this message that you're actually cool enough to talk to, or talk, that you know what you're talking about. Like, nobody's going to invite somebody that doesn't know anything about their product or service onto their show. Like, when I used to have my podcast, I would vet these people. My guests were people that I either knew or they were introduced to me. They weren't random strangers. So if you don't have people right now that have a podcast or have a blog that you could be a guest on, well, one of the things that you could start doing right now is doing some research on those things that are out there already for you. So iTunes is a great place to start. If you take just a few moments and pull up iTunes on your computer, there's actually a search bar. You could do this with iTunes. You could do it with Spotify. You could do it with iHeartRadio. You could do it with, Libsyn. There's other podcast mediums out there, but iTunes seems to be the one that kind of floats to the top. What you could do is literally take that search bar and put in your niche to find the podcasts that are related to your industry. So just take a few moments to get to know those people. And hi, Jamie, how are you? And don't actually reach out to them from a place of like, I want to be a guest on your show. Because like I used to get those pitches all the time, and it used to irritate me so bad because I was like, I don't know you from Adam. Chances are you probably haven't had a chance to listen to my podcast. You're just pitching me. Again, it's going back to the pitching aspect, right? Like, we don't want to lead with the pitch all the time. We want to lead with value. So if we're not doing what we need to do to lead with value, then people are going to tune you out. And all of your efforts in terms of promoting your business and positioning yourself out there from a place of strength go down the drain. You're wasting your time. You're wasting your money, because if you're only pitching, it ain't gonna matter. Like, people are gonna tune that stuff out. So be smart about it. Start building rapport and relationships first, and then find a way. So here's a little tip I want to share with you all today as it relates to podcasts. Find out who already has a podcast. Maybe check something like the new and noteworthy section on iTunes. Those people are just now starting out their podcast. I mean, I think the deciding factor on who makes new and noteworthy, you got to be under 8 weeks old. So it's not a long-term show, right? It's something that just happened. You could reach out and be from a place of service and say, hey, I see that you've got a podcast. If they have an opportunity where they have guests, again, don't go in for the kill and start pitching yourself as a guest, even if you're an ideal candidate for their podcast. But simply come to them from a place of support and say, what are your ideal guests? I have a network of, you don't have to say the number of people in your network, but you can just say, you know what, as a business owner, I know a lot of people. Whether you do or you're not, I don't want you to lie about it, but if you genuinely have a lot of people in your network, you want to come from a place of, hey, look, you have a podcast. What are your ideal guests? Is there anything I can be looking for or thinking about as it relates to finding guests for your show? I'd love to help you out. Period. That's it. You know what? If I were a podcast host, I was a podcast host. I'm going to be launching a new concept later on this year. If I got that email from somebody, I would be more receptive to following up and following through with them, because they're coming from a place of service. They're not coming from a place of greed and like, oh my gosh, like I'm trying to pitch me because I'm so wonderful and so awesome. Okay. So whether, again, going back to this place of, and I got to hop off here in a moment, going from this place of service and support, what are you doing as a business owner, as somebody that's marketing a business? Hey, Nicole. Hey, Diane, how are you? What are you doing to position your brand as a place from a place of service, not from a place of come buy my product or my service, period. If it's in your e-newsletter, again, I understand that you have got to position that product or service in front of your ideal customer, because that's how we make money, right? And when we have more money, we can generally support more people because we can grow our company and we can do all these other phenomenal things. But if we are constantly coming from that place of just pitching, today, perfect case and example, I love the woman that actually sent me an email, but I'm going to have to freaking delete her from my inbox because it is always, always, always heavy pitch, okay? So take just a few moments to think about what you can do in your emails to provide value. And you know what? The icing on the cake is when you actually can even, not to toot my own horn, but a lot of my emails, like even if I'm going to pitch you and tell you to go do something, like go buy a ticket to my workshop, hint, the Expand Your Presence workshop coming up on March 22nd. If I'm going to tell you that in an email, I'm going to lead you up with a bunch of value before I say, oh, and by the way, buy my ticket to my workshop or buy a ticket to my workshop, okay? So hey, Jem, how are you? So take just a few moments to think about, from your client's point of view or your strategic partner's point of view, how that message is going to be received. You can certainly position your services and products in front of those people, but do it in a place that really supports your brand as somebody that's going to be valuable beyond just like selling them something. Position yourself as an expert. Share resources, share tips. Good morning, my friend. And then, like I said, this other tip that I had, this little tiny tip, and again, I'm going to share a lot more of these tips on Thursday at the Expand Your Presence workshop. But the other tip that I have for you today is start to position your brand in front of other audiences by researching other podcast or guest blog opportunities, I should say. This even goes for speaking gigs too. I don't have time to go into the whole speaking gig thing today. I've talked about that more recently in other stuff that I've done. But you know, this is really a widening your audience, but positioning your brand in a place of like you're literally going to give them, you know, the top 8 to 12 tips or resources or, you know, things that they should know as it relates to your industry. Why would it be important for you? And if you could talk about those things on other people's podcasts. I was just on, if Jim's still on here, I was literally just on he wasn't on the podcast, but his beautiful bride, Amy, they actually have a weekly, not only a weekly podcast, but they also have a weekly web show. And I was a guest on their web show. We didn't even talk about like business per se. We didn't talk about like where people could go learn more about my coaching. We really just were talking about having a nice conversation about how to invest in yourself today, invest in yourself for the future, because Jim and Amy are wealth managers. And so, you know, really we were coming from that place of like how, like when we're thinking about investing for the future, Amy's part, right? And then investing in today and what you're doing today, that was kind of my gig. So we brought those two together and really had a lovely conversation. It's kind of a funny conversation too. But it was having that moment where people could connect with us without feeling like, okay, we're going to pitch them now into something. So that's what it's all about, folks. Marketing, positioning yourself, doing it from a place of service. Hey, Nan, how are you? Taking just a few moments to identify the 8 to 12 things that are going to tips, resources, information your clients, your strategic partners need to know, and then figuring out a way to get those 8 to 12 sound bites or nuggets out in front of your audience, drip that into their audience. Do live streams, get on other people's podcasts, get on people's write for people. You know, there's all sorts of ways that we can do that. I certainly don't have time on how we can actually start doing that if you don't know how to. If you want to learn more about this subject, if you want to get into a place where you're expanding your presence more methodically, more strategically, more timely, Expand Your Presence event, March 22nd, 4 to 6, downtown Fort Myers at Millennial Brewery. If somebody's on here and they want to throw that link up, not throw it up, but they want to put it up there, I would greatly appreciate it. If not, I totally get it too. I will put that in the comment section once I wrap up here. So you guys have been phenomenal. You've been awesome. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. And I'm hoping that there's a way that we can still continue the conversation outside of this live stream today. Hit me up in the comment section or send me a private message. Let me know what your current area of focus is and how I might be of service. So you guys rock. Until next time, take care.